Finally, it's time to get around to doing the paint. I thought about spray painting the entire car with an electric sprayer. I thought about taking it to Mako or other similar low price painter. I thought about wrapping it with vinyl. I thought about using a whole bunch of spray cans to paint it, but that concerned me with how much garbage and waste it was going to generate. I knew I wanted the paint job to be really cheap and preferably something I could do at home quickly just to protect the paint. I noticed there was bare metal. I did not want any of this car rusting, and I just wanted to get through the rest of the season while I figured out something more permanent to do with the paint.
Probably the least important part of this car that needs paint is the Chevy badge on the front, but it was bugging me, and since I'm going to be doing something about the white paint all over the car, I figured I might as well do the non-white colors first. So I masked it off, and the paint is drying now. I did spray the headlight bucket. Semi-gloss is all I had, but looking at it, I'm starting to wonder if it was flat black, not semi-gloss black. Here's the original color. I don't know, it's hard to tell if this is it or not, but either way, the bucket looks a little better. All right, one more coat, and that should do it. All right, one more coat, and we'll take off the masking. This paint's almost empty anyway, as you can hear. I don't think it's a perfect match. I do think it's gonna be a flat, and I'll leave this part masked probably and get some flat paint at some point, flat black. I went out and got some flat black, which I think is the proper color for this headlight bucket. As it's drying, it looks better already. I did try to sand these huge pock marks, but man, they were really deep, and I kind of gave up because they were so deep, and my sander would have gone through a lot of plastic. Not sure how plastic degrades like that, but it did. And then just to make sure that each headlight bucket matches, I started painting this one too. Didn't bother masking since I realized I'd be sanding this down and painting and priming anyway, so not really any point in masking except for the headlights, of course. And I'll give a couple coats of this, and then I'll be done with the headlights for now at least. I should point out this entire paint job is by no means going to be a show car paint job. It's just to make it slightly less embarrassing to drive around. You can see all the marks on here, and the black hood louvers are supposed to be white. The paint is just faded off, and the side skirts are really bad. So my point is, I'm not looking for a show car finish. This is not going to be the final product for this car, this paint job I'm doing. So when I see things on the headlight buckets and stuff that aren't perfect, it doesn't really bother me, just in general, but especially considering I'll probably end up doing something better with this car. Kind of a rushed paint job, if you will, if there is such a thing. I am going to mask this entire rear window to get ready for the overall paint job, but also I'm going to paint this strip all the way around. I'm going to paint this black, so I just finished sanding that. It was faded and ugly, so we'll mask the rear window for the big job, paint this black, and then mask just this stripe here, this strip of metal, and then eventually in a week or two get started on the big paint job. That might even be enough for that bucket. I might leave it alone at this point. Now to the rear hatch. I got it all masked off. Alright, added a couple more coats to the headlight buckets. And I think it's good enough to take off the masking. So now for one of the more satisfying parts of automotive work, I'll unwrap the Christmas present. This side looks really good. It was always the better and smoother side, but For the record, flat black is the way to go for these buckets, not semi-gloss like I originally tried. Now I'm gonna take it off. I was gonna leave it masked for when I paint the other parts for painting the whole car, but I'm gonna want to take this thing to the pressure washer place, and all this would get blown off by the pressure washer anyway, if not the wind on the way over there. So I present to you the new Chevy logo on the front. Oh, I got some overspray down there. Come on, man. Chevy logo looks pretty darn good. Oh yeah. Looking better already. I almost forgot I did some more painting on the back. And on this trim piece here. That one you can barely tell. I did get some overspray on this, but I'm sanding that down anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But let's see how we do peeling this part off. Ooh, that's nice. Look at that. Ah, this is so satisfying. Just small $5 repair makes this look so much better than it was. It was rusty and faded and paint was coming off. $5 later. Oh yeah. Very nice. I gotta admit, I am pretty intimidated to paint this thing. I've never painted a whole car before. But it'll be nice when it's done, or I should say it's going to be nicer when it's done. It's never going to be nice until I pay for a real paint job, but nicer nonetheless. You're joining me today at the Super Wash in Berwyn, Illinois. I figured now that the car is running somewhat reliably, at least for now, I'd take it down to the pressure washer place, get a lot of this dirt and grime out of it that's been there for who knows how long. I want to make sure that if I'm gonna at least do a DIY paint job on the car, that I'm not just painting over dirt. So here's the before. I'm gonna go really easy on the engine bay for obvious reasons, even more so because this car is still not 100% trustworthy yet. It's been reliable for the last day or two, but I want to make sure that it's not just a coincidence, so go light on the engine if at all, but mostly just get the cowl, the trunk, the door sills, and get my greasy fingerprints off the hood and the trunk from all the work I've been doing on it. So here we go. So my trust in the car following the idle issue is still increasing. I drove it to a couple hardware stores and just around town a little bit. So no problems to report, which is great. And as my confidence increases, I'm investing a bit more time in paint prep. All right, today I'm doing a lot more skim coating and body filler type work in preparation for primer. As you guys have seen, this car has nasty scratches all over it. I have a theory as to how this car got its strange pattern of scratches and stuff on it. I'll show you in a sec. But I've got this body filler that I'm using to try to smooth out all these divots and scratches and then I've been sanding it down. I'll show you the other side in a sec. As you can see, I've started using some body filler to try to fill in a lot of the scratches and dents on this car. You can barely see it, but it's the Bondo glazing and spot putty. I got it in a tube. Works great for the smaller ones. One thing I've noticed is if I've got a lot of volume to get through, it goes pretty fast. But all of this is the single tube I've gotten so far. And I've sanded this side down already a little bit, and I'm laying down some new stuff over here this morning. Before I cover over all the dents and scratches, I want to show y'all something. I think this car was sitting in a barn or an old garage or something for a while. The scratches seem to follow 3 lines across the length of the car. There's a line of scratches here and a couple of smaller ones here, but imagine it was sitting in a garage under a rafter and the rafter was dripping on it, and we got some scratches that way. And here there's another line of scratches all the way up to the back of the car over the roof, and finally another line of scratches over here. To me, they seem kind of lined up like they're under a rafter or garage beam or something like that. That's my thought. The underside is so clean, I wouldn't be surprised if it was sitting idle for quite some time. And the mileage is low. It's 137,000 miles. For a 30-year-old car, that equates to about 4,500 miles a year. So pretty low mileage. And I think it was sitting for quite some time. But nonetheless, I'm going to sand it all down and working ever slowly towards primer and paint. All right, I've got the first coat of Bondo filler in there. I've even got it sanded down, at least with the heavy grit stuff. I'm using 180 to get some of the big, tall mounds down. I'm not a very good skimmer, apparently. Next, I'm going to go across with the 400. Not only the red Bondoed areas, but the entire car, because 400, I read, is the best grit to use, at least by some people's standards, before the first coat of primer. So I'm really excited to be getting close to the primer stage now. But lots of sanding left to do, of course. Lots of sanding. My power sander broke, but it's probably just as well. I'll do it by hand, at least for now, until my arms get tired. And then my buddy down the block, he'll loan me his orbital sander to finish it off. Well, now that the 180 took off the big stuff, this part's not so bad. Tedious, but not so hard once we got a lot of the big material off. All right, I've got all the filler in. I've sanded it down, rinsed it off with the hose, and then washed it with some soapy water. And my mitt, now it's drying. It's taking a while to dry. Meanwhile, I'll take the taillights out and probably do some more masking if it's not too wet. I might even get it primered today, at least the first coat. It's looking pretty nice today and not too hot. Tomorrow is going to be awesome. Only about 75 degrees Fahrenheit, so I'll be able to do some painting or primer tomorrow. All right, to take out the taillights, you got to remove the 2 screws here, the I guess the plastic screws around the outside of the trim. Pop this side out, pop out the other side, take this trim down. You can unplug it, I'm just leaving it plugged in. And then there's 5 thumb screws on the back of the taillight that come out. 2 here, and 1 hiding way deep in here. 5. And then you just gently pull it out, starting at the inside near the license plate. You'll see a lot of gunk in this case, but you'll also see the taillight bulb housings. You unclip it here and then take out the 3 bulb housings, and then there's a license plate one in there as well. Oh, and a side marker, so that's 5. All right, I got the tail lights out. Like I said, it's 5 thumb screws. This one I had a lot of problems with. I had to really wiggle it and jiggle it and tilt the tail light up a little bit on the back to slide it out. But I got it out, and I also cleaned up a ton of mud down there. God, it was gross. Y'all saw in the previous shot how muddy it was. Well, I cleaned it up a little bit, got all the mud out, rinsed all the mud out way out into the alley. And now I'm just going to keep masking. Lots of masking to do still. Try not to do stuff in a hurry. I promised myself I wouldn't hurry because I'm bad about that, but here I am. I'll try to take it slow. There's no rush. There's no time constraint. I just want to get it done because I want to drive this car. All right, here she is one last time before I start spraying. Kind of looks like a race car with the blue on the front, but then again, it also looks like it has chicken pox with all the red marks all over it. All right, it's the next day. I've wiped the car down with paint thinner. I've wiped it down with wax and tar remover. Now I've got a tack cloth I ordered. I'm gonna wipe that down all over the car. And it's finally time to pour the primer in and start spraying. Well, I got the primer sprayed on there. My sprayer is pretty disappointing. As soon as I pull the trigger, it leaves huge globs of paint and shoots it out and then starts spraying. So that's one huge complaint I have about the sprayer. That didn't go really well. Furthermore, if you can zoom in here, this is beyond orange peel. It's like the gun is just spitting on the car. It makes no sense. It's pretty awful. I'm going to try and sand it out after 24 hours or so and see if that makes it better. But right now, pretty disappointed and bad news for my DIY paint project. Would not recommend the paint sprayer I got. Now, I did get an open box, but most of the stuff was sealed. So I don't think it's a fault of the person that returned it, or I don't think they wrecked anything. There it is. Would not recommend, at least for a car, maybe for a fence or something. I did get my neighbor's free sprayer, but this seems more like for garden use. Maybe I'll try it tomorrow and see how it goes. Anyway, that's where we are at now. We'll see how it stands out tomorrow, but not too good right now. At least it's all one color. If I can say one positive thing, at least it's all one color. And the fake hood vents that these cars came with, 90 to 92, they're supposed to be body color, so at least they are the same color as the hood now. But I'll need a lot of sanding and some white paint pretty soon, because it doesn't look too good right now.
Well, you saw the result of how the primer looked. I'm calling it mega eggshell. Really rough, like a stucco bathtub, as Dennis Collins on YouTube would say. But I got my kids involved to try to help sand. Not sure what caused this bumpiness, if it was the sprayer or if it was not thinned out like it should have been. The can of primer said, use as is, right out of the can, no thinning necessary. And that's what I did with the sprayer. But obviously this is not right. And eventually I realized the sandpaper just gets gummed up and does not take off nearly as much material as I needed to, and it was just getting clogged up. So I took an idea from my brother-in-law, took a razor blade and actually started scraping the paint off, dragging the blade perpendicular to the paint and sliding it along, and the top layer of primer would pop off, which was really helpful in speeding things up. I even got to the point for a while I was horizontally scraping paint off in some places. It was just not dry yet, even though it had been 24 hours, actually probably 48 hours at this point, and it was just not drying and curing at all. So I scraped it off and kind of started over.
another weeknight, another sanding session. So you just saw I was removing the excess super eggshell-like primer that my sprayer and my neighbor's other sprayer left on the car. I'm just gonna try rolling it on because I'm trying to get this car back on the road for the season. I've got a couple months left now to drive it around, and I figure if I'm still not happy with the paint after that, I've got all winter to take it to a shop, and I might farm it out at that point. Alright, bit of an update. I got some high density foam rollers, and I reduced down the acrylic. I got Arctic White acrylic and started rolling today. Since yesterday I'd gotten it all sanded down with 320, and it's okay. It's rough, it needs some sanding. I learned a lesson with this project. Don't do projects where the car could be down for weeks on end during the driving season. Here in Chicago, it's a relatively short driving season, and so on Sunday I saw some 60s Cutlasses and 70s Cutlasses and a couple of 80s Monte Carlos driving around, and I was pretty jealous that I couldn't drive my car on a beautiful Sunday. So I got some sanding done, and I got the first coat down. It's still pretty wet, as you can see, and that will probably it for this round of paint. Next go round I'll either wrap it or probably pay someone to paint it, because not really my forte. I just wanted to hide all the bare metal with this pass and get rid of all the faded plastic. If you remember, the side skirts were all gray and mottled. The fake vents were black, and they should be body color for this year. And pretty much all the plastic was bad looking on this car. So rough job, rushing through it. My usual MO with body work, but looking forward to being able to drive it again because I miss it. Stay tuned for a second coat update. I'm already looking forward to taking the masking off, but it's going to be a few more days before that. Alright, it's a couple days later now, and a couple coats later. When I last spoke to you guys, I had laid down the first color coat with a roller. I started out with about 25% reducer in the acrylic enamel. That was too much, so I ended up around about 10 or 12%, maybe 15% reducer for the second, and what I just finished now is the third coat. It is rough, it is drippy, it is orange peely. You can probably see plenty of that in this video. So I'm expecting to do a lot of sanding. I apologize for not filming the rolling, but it wasn't that interesting. It's a pretty ugly paint job. It's better than it was, which doesn't say much, but it's still pretty ugly. I question whether or not it was worth all my time and prep to do this. I probably spent, I don't know, I've recorded everything I've spent. I haven't added it up yet. I would guess between $250 and $300. The cheapest Mako quote I got wanted somewhere between $900 and $1,500 is what the online tool told me. So yes, I saved some money. It looks way worse than what Mako would have done, I admit, but I'm not convinced about which direction I want to go in this car, whether wrap. So for the time being, my goal was to make it look better than it was, not spend too much money, and protect the bare metal spots, of which there were many, as you guys saw in previous videos. I did not want to go the rest of the season driving through rain and go into the winter with bare metal exposed. And once I start rattle canning stuff, I figured, well, I'll just paint the whole car, so at least it's a consistent level of ugly and not different colors, different shades. It's all one ugly shade, so that's good. So that's it. Tomorrow I'll put on the trim, take off the masking, put the taillights back in, and take it for a spin. Good night for now. Well, here she is in the light of day. Just dropped off some sanding parts to my buddy. Thanks to him for loaning them to me. Looks great from here, right? Bright white paint, super clean, smooth, reflective. Oh man, what a nice car. And then you get closer. Not so nice. Here's orange peel. Some drips, lots of drips. But good enough for this end of season. There's only a couple good driving months left. And I'm gonna enjoy it. I'm not gonna use that time to work on it. I'm just gonna enjoy it. Replace the cracked fog light. Maybe replace the diff gasket seal since that's leaking. And try not to keep it, and try to keep it on the move, enjoying it rather than keeping it idle. So that's it for the paint video. Thanks for watching, and there'll be more videos coming soon.